can't believe that they got Fletcher Cox and now apparently could re-sign Darius Slay. I mean, this is insane. And if for those of you just joining us, we'll catch you up. Most of you, if you're live right now joining us, and we'll reset the deck in a second, they have re-signed Fletcher Cox to a one-year, $10 million deal. We do not know the details of that contract. Is it fully guaranteed at $10 million? Is it going to be 6 plus 4 in incentives? We don't know, but they have brought back Fletcher Cox. The report coming out from multiple NFL insiders 30 minutes ago. And I know you saw this too, Josh, but the Jets offered him more money. The Jets were trying to lock him down on a one-year deal. And yet again, we see an Eagles veteran, this time Brandon Graham, James Bradbury, and now Fletcher Cox take less money to stay with the Eagles. Josh, I thought the Eagles were going to lose everybody and stink this year. It makes no sense.
I know, that's what we were told, right? We were told that, hey, Eagles don't have any money, get expected for a complete defensive overhaul, which, yeah, we've lost some,
yeah,
but we've got a lot of big players and big names back. So I'm excited. I've loved seeing all this news. I am still, obviously, as probably most of us are, anxiously awaiting to see, do we actually not lose Slay? What's the curious thing there? And CJ Gardner-Johnson has continued to be, but like I mentioned on my show yesterday, no news is good news. So
yes,
the fact that we haven't heard anything has got to seem to be that, you know what, Howie's trying to figure out what he can do to make this thing happen. So I am thrilled with what's happened so far. I was definitely surprised by the Cox news here. And honestly, I mean, my opinion here is that Brandon Graham had everything to do with it. We know that they're really close. I mean, if you watch the games, if you watch mic'd up sessions, them being together, hanging out a lot, BG took a pay cut and he had a phenomenal year. So I could almost guarantee you that he's saying, hey, Fletch, come on, let's run this thing back. So I'm ecstatic.
This is the Jalen Hurts effect. I mean, very clearly, James Bradbury said it first. You know, I want to run it back. I think this team can run it back, and Jalen Hurts is a big factor in that. Anyone in the comments section, of course, we're going to read all of your comments. We're going to answer a lot of your questions here. Also got a really cool giveaway coming up in just a couple of minutes. Although people who are saying Cox coming back is bad, there were only 5 other defensive tackles in the entire National Football last year with more sacks. Now, it's defensive tackle. You get 5, 6 sacks is still great. But think about the mentorship for Jordan Davis. Another year under Fletcher Cox to learn, to take over. This defense, especially if they bring back, I mean, CJ Gardner-Johnson, which I think we're going to get at any moment now, in my opinion, this defense is going to be pretty darn good. It's going to be at least close enough to as good as it was this past season, but at maybe even a little bit better. Let's go CJ Gardner-Johnson first, and then the Slay stuff for people who don't understand what's going on with Darius Slay. You mentioned it there. We'll stay short on CJ and then go over to Slay. The fact we haven't heard about CJ Gardner-Johnson, and this is day 3 of NFL free agency, is very good news for Philadelphia. And I don't know if you've seen some of the other safety deals that are happening. The Chiefs safety, Thornhill, just got a 2-year, $14 million a year deal. Like it's a cheaper market. And I think CJ Gardner-Johnson went out to the market. He saw that there isn't much more in terms of money. If it's $1 million more than what Philadelphia can offer, he's probably going to come back to Philadelphia. I'm surprised it's taking this long, but I do think Philly has a very real chance at CJ Gardner-Johnson.
I do. I agree. It's again, the fact it's taking this long is good. I am surprised that it took this long, but like you mentioned, I mean, Jordan Poyer, Jesse Bates, Von Bell, like all the safety deals that we've seen, quite honestly, have been either at projected value or below. And so I think we were thinking, well, there's a possibility that the safety market gets reset. And if that happened, then yeah, CJ Gardner-Johnson's obviously gone. But again, nothing's happened so far. And if you also read into the Fletcher Cox news here, yes, I get the whole argument of, okay, was it too much? Also the argument of, hey, I'm thrilled that he's going to be back. I'm more so on the side of thrilled that he's going to be back. But look into the fact that Howie's willing to pay $10 million a year for Fletch. That's a good sign that he's got something in the back pocket for CJ Gardner-Johnson. Don't think that he's like, oh yeah, I can just blow this $10 million when I could have used it to keep CJ. So I think that we're in for a signing of CJ Gardner-Johnson. We're waiting, obviously, for that breaking news to happen, and we all be just through the roof and over the moon about it. But I think it's a really positive sign about CJ.
I'm like 95% sure he's going to come back. I mean, it would take a monumental offer from another football team in terms of maybe $3 or $4 million more a year for him not to come back to Philadelphia at this point. Obviously, we're going to be checking Twitter throughout the live show tonight. If it happens, drop a comment down below. Be sure to thumbs up the live stream as well, because more thumbs up, the more people who are going to see it. Let's go over here to the James Bradbury situation, if I can figure out how to get us both on the screen. There we go. Okay, sorry, I meant Darius Slay. So Darius Slay, of course, was released today. I did a show on it, broke it all down, and basically the whole idea was you designate him for a post-June 1st cut. You're going to save $17 million in cap space, which is honestly a lot. And honestly, trying to re-sign CJ Gardner-Johnson, you need that money. And so, while it was a bummer, I wanted to bring him back, despite what a lot of people in my comments said about him being washed and this and that. I think that it was still the right move. However, this has happened over the past, I don't know, Josh, 30 minutes, Bleeding Green Nation with the article. Darius Slay leaves the door open upon potential return. And it all starts with Twitter. And this is nuts. So he's replying to a tweet here, and he says, might be back, LOL, never know. And then Darius Slay threw the eye emojis. Whenever you see the eye emojis, something crazy is happening. And then this, to me, is the big indication right here. His wife, Jennifer Slay, very active on Twitter, big-time Eagle fan. She did the eye emojis as well. This is 5:25 Eastern Time, 6:03 Eastern Time, 5:17 p.m. Eastern Time. This is recent. And so, like a lot of people pointed out to me in my comment section, and a lot of people on Twitter, I'm sure you saw as well, it's the Fletcher Cox all over again from last year. They couldn't afford Fletcher Cox's current contract. They cut him. Cox went out to the market, realized there wasn't much there for him, and so he came back on a quote-unquote cheaper deal, and I think something very similar could happen with Darius Slay.
Yep. And I think you're right. Obviously, he says, hey, wait a second, it could change. I could be back. It will be interesting to see, though, because I think that Marlon Humphrey had tweeted right about the same time. So I know that Slay has ties to Humphrey. Denard Wilson obviously just went to Baltimore. So they're, not to be too pessimistic here, but I'm just trying to be a little bit realistic. If there's a chance that he does not, and maybe he's giving the eye emoji, the whole like charades and context of like what's going on when we post these emojis. I'd love if we could get a little bit more context. So something is breaking, but you don't know. Maybe it's Baltimore, but maybe it's still Philly, because Slay, like you showed there in the tweet, did say, you never know, I may be back. So it could be a good sign. And it is interesting, the fact that we got the breaking news of the chance or the potential the Eagles were going to release Slay, but then you saw the Cowboys release Ezekiel Elliott, like the news had mentioned, but then there's actually no official, hey, the Eagles did release Slay. So let's kind of backtrack that now and say, well, maybe so. Maybe Slay is going to stay.
I was just about to mention that. There's a tweet here from D.I. Bird's blog saying, it's interesting that Darius hasn't been officially released yet. I wonder if a team called and made them a last-second offer so Slay wouldn't hit the open market. That's something I didn't think about. You mentioned it. They haven't officially released him. You got to put that paperwork into the league offices. That makes it official. And really, if you're just on Twitter, you follow the Eagles' official Twitter account, they make it officially official. That's how you know it. When the Eagles Twitter account does it, then it's been, sorted through the league paperwork and all that jazz. So either they're going to bring him back and restructure him, which I guess is still on the table, or they're going to actually have a trade offer for him. Although I'll push back on the trade offer. I don't know the exact money here, but it does seem like if it's a pre-June 1st trade, they're going to eat a lot more dead cap money than if it's a post-June 1st cut. The whole June 1st stuff is very confusing for a lot of people, but if it's pre-June 1st, that means they're going to eat more dead money unless a team takes on the dead money contract. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It's very interesting right now. Things are developing
now, but he's the king of deleted tweets, so you just
oh my gosh,
just hold on and let's see. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It's always the immediate knee-jerk reaction. You got something?
Miles Sanders is a Panther. Wow, 24 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Jeremy Fowler has that one. Miles Sanders is signing with the Frank Reich. Wow, I didn't even think about that. Wow. Well, we're breaking news here on the show. There he goes.
I'm curious to see what contract he gets.
How much money did he get?
Jamal Williams got what, the $8 million?
Or guaranteed. Yeah, he only got $4 million a year. It was 3 years and $12 million. Wow, there goes Miles Sanders. And the CJ ... Does that coincide with Sanders? I don't know.
I don't know.
Wow. Listen, okay, let's talk about this for a second. First off, let me just say this. 451 people watching. Thumbs up. We appreciate that. Also, can we get Josh to 1,000 subs? He's at 947. Like, we literally need 53 more subs to get Josh to 1,000. It's linked down below. You don't have to leave this show. Just click down below in my description box. Josh's channel, fantastic stuff. We do this every single Wednesday. He has his own Eagle show. Be sure to subscribe. Can we get him to 1,000 by the end of the show? I think we can. It's not that hard. Okay. So Sanders is gone. And we're going to wait for the update here. If you see something, Josh, let me know. This is very fun to do it live right now. The question is going to be money. It really is. So let's just say this about Miles Sanders. I'll give my 2 cents. Love Miles Sanders. I still think to this day they underutilized him in 2022. This past season, it felt like, especially later down the stretch, he either had a knee injury or they just knew he was going to be gone and they were like, you know what, have fun. But I think they underutilized him. I was all for bringing him back, but you clearly see what Howie Roseman is trying to do. He does not value linebackers and running backs. He never has. And so instead of paying Miles Sanders maybe $5 million a year, let's just say Jamal got 4. So let's say, potentially $5 million a year for Miles Sanders to go to the Carolina Panthers. Guess how much the Eagles' entire 3 starting running backs cost for the 2023 season?
$5 million.
Exactly. And so instead of having 1, who has been injured often. And again, I love Miles Sanders. I think he's great. They get Boston Scott, who's going to beat the Giants twice a year. It's guaranteed. They have Kenny Gainwell, who they're very high on, and he really started popping later on in the year. And Rashard Penny, who we haven't even talked about yet. Rashard Penny has a chance to be really good if he can stay healthy. So congratulations to Miles Sanders, who just got his bag. We're going to try to figure out the money here live on the show, but this is not a surprise. And honestly, I'm pretty happy he's going to be with Frank Reich and the Carolina Panthers. That's a good organization and a fun place.
Yep, and reunited with Deuce Staley. Don't forget about that. So,
come on, that's as obvious as it is.
Yeah. Best wishes to him. I'm with you. It was the playoffs were weird because, yeah, to your point, it's like Miles Sanders wouldn't be used, and then all of a sudden he'd have a pretty productive game, but it was just off and on, and you couldn't really tell. I know it's always or typically always going to be kind of a committee backfield approach. But yeah, I mean, thumbs up for Howie here because he's turned a backfield for $5 million. I know Rashad Penny, yes, he's injury prone. You don't know for sure. There's some risks there, but that's a guy 5.7 yards per carry in his career, and over the past 2 seasons, 6.2 yards per carry. I mean, love Miles, but I don't think that if you're healthy, I know that's a huge argument to make, but when they're healthy, Rashad Penny to me is a better running back. Now, you can make a lot of arguments there, but Rashad Penny, I saw his pass blocking was much better if you compared to all 3 Eagles running backs, including Miles Sanders. So really, it's just a question if you can keep him healthy, but you've got the committee backfield. Kenny G's going to get a bigger role. Boston Scott's been re-signed. So for $5 million behind this offensive line, I don't think it gets any better than that. Plus, if you want to make the argument too, this is always what makes me happy. What are the Giants paying Saquon Barkley? They're paying him $10 million a year. You just saw now that you've got a contract with Jamal Williams for $4 million, and they're paying Daniel Jones the $40 million a year. So when you look at what the Giants pay for versus what the Eagles are not having to pay for, and we've seen a lot of times, all you need is a strong offensive line. You put some decent, some prominent running backs and get them in the right scheme. You don't have to fork out all this money, and Howie's saving it for much better opportune places.